Hey, this is Lauren with the 4-question series. Today I'm here with Luke, not Tierney.
Tierney.
Tierney. Here with Luke Tierney. So Luke is the owner of Eco D2C. So as you know, starting off, kind of introductions. So a little bit about yourself. Obviously, I told him about the business that you run, kind of how you got into the digital nomad lifestyle, where you're at now, where you've been, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in my mid-20s, I moved down to Medellin, Colombia as part of just a life goal to become fluent in Spanish. I moved to South America. I was not aware of anything regarding digital nomadism or digital marketing, even at the time. But I moved there, I taught English, ended up founding my own Spanish Immersion Institute there actually. I've been in Colombia and beyond to take classes at Columbia Immersion. That was my first business.
Huh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so in the midst of founding that, we just identified an opportunity. Medellin was growing really quickly. We thought we'd do better than a lot of other schools. But in the midst of doing that, I came across the digital nomad scene. As anybody who's probably with this lifestyle is in that region, they're probably aware that Medellin's kind of a hotspot for this. Mm-hmm. And I was really intrigued by all the obvious, advantages to living a digitally nomadic lifestyle. I was definitely on a high after having a successful my first business. Some life breathed into that. Mm-hmm. And so eventually when I left Colombia, I was really hell-bent on figuring out a way that I could keep on starting businesses, but maybe more focused on online.
Sure.
So I founded a website, nomadplayground.com, which collects reviews of where people are finding online work. And then through this school, that's where I started doing digital marketing in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then through a bunch of subsequent projects, I got really heavily involved. And the way I came to found Eco D2C was before any of this, I used to work at environmental nonprofits. And so I wanted to find a way to return to something with an environmental focus while still being for-profit, have it be online and flexible. And I'd gotten involved, through digital marketing with Amazon sellers, and so I thought, why can't we just connect? Do Amazon for brands that are making things that are better for people, better for the environment, and that's what we do with Eco D2C. So I've been running this agency for the past 3 years, and it's been like starting a business always is a hell of a ride.
A couple of things I wanted to say in there is he attempted and as far as I can tell, won at fluency in Spanish. Yeah. So he is fluent in Spanish, which is pretty badass. Which I didn't actually know until about a year after I met him. Pretty funny.
We ran into each other at a Spanish exchange actually, which is really funny.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, so Luke is an example. I would say of everyone I know, I think Luke has lived the most digital nomadic lifestyle. You also spent some time in Portugal. Could you talk a little bit about when was that? So in the chronological.
So I was in Colombia for a couple years, and then Buenos Aires for a year, and then Portugal, Lisbon specifically for about a year. Mm-hmm. And then after, I was outside of the U.S. for about half of my 20s, and then I moved from Portugal to Denver.
Okay, killer.
And then trips abroad, here and there, but I came back to I've always moved around fairly, because there are lots of people that I've known that like to move to a different country, new city, like every month or a couple months. I've always been more to stay in one place for a longer period of time.
Yeah, and so that's one distinction that I think a lot of people who are starting their digital nomad lifestyle, I know for me as example was, I have to be traveling all the time. There's some sort of weird pressure or expectation. Not necessarily. So you can do it like Luke for sure, or you can kind of have more of a home base and then kind of just travel whenever you want for 2, 4, 6 weeks, or even a couple days, right?
Yeah. The point is the flexibility.
For sure, exactly. Yeah, having the choice. That's really what I mean. Okay, so what is your favorite place to work remote at, and why?
So I love a lot of places I've been for a lot of different reasons. But as far as just having the infrastructure, having a really solid digital nomad crowd, mm-hmm. That's really consistent, people who are very experienced. Lisbon's got a very special place in my heart for that. It's just a lot of great people, a lot of fun things to do, and the city's beautiful, and as opposed to other places that I've worked, like you don't have to worry as much about internet just going out for a day or a couple of days,
Yeah.
which
Right.
sometimes depending on where you are, like half the city might be.
Or electricity in some
Yeah.
cases, right? Depending on where you're at, for sure. Okay.
So you can obviously do this safely from a member response, but
Oh.
I would, if I had to pick one, I might pick one.
Lisbon, killer. So, what 2 points of advice would you give somebody who is interested in working remote in Lisbon?
Depends on. So it depends on where you are in your life. So I had the unique, maybe not unique, but I had my position when I was first figuring all these things out is like I didn't have any money to speak of. Like I did, work trades and hostels and couch
Sure.
surfing and all these kinds of things just to scrap by while I figured work out. So like if somebody has like monthly payments to make, if someone has a family, like it depends on how many financial responsibilities you have. But
Sure.
if you happen to be in the position that I was in, I would say just go. Like just go and meet people who are doing this and talk to folks and network and figure it out. I've always I have time after time like put myself in a position where I had to figure things out.
Absolutely.
And that, while admittedly being like pretty stressful at times, is also it's been a strategy that's worked.
Yeah.
And having other people around who experienced and maybe are thinking about things that you haven't come across yet can be really useful. But regardless, like it doesn't like your worst case scenario if you're a native English speaker with a college degree, which I realize not everybody is. In fact, most people in the world are not that. But if you happen to be in that demographic,
I'd say this demographic would generally
Yeah.
fit that for sure.
then like you can like there are, and this is one of the reasons I founded Nomad Playground was to collect reviews of these kinds of places, but you can get paid $8-10 an hour on the low end just for having conversations with people in English like this, with people who are learning. And then if you get into some of the actual better paying gigs, you can get paid 20 an hour.
Yep.
If there's another skill set that you can utilize and be online and just be remote, then obviously that's the fastest way to do it. But if you don't have a job yet, but you have the flexibility and the freedom, you can travel for enormously cheap. You can go to people who are doing this, and you can get a taste. And then if you have a job you can take remote, or if you have a skill set you're looking to utilize, you just need to know how to find work doing that remotely. Then your path's going to be a bit different. But it's all possible. I just it's not going to come easy necessarily, but it's all possible.
For sure. So kind of to distill that down, if we were to break that down into the 2 points, what I really took from this is one is just taking the leap, right? If you're in the situation where we're going to assume that a lot of people listening to this are, you don't have kids, you don't have any major bills to speak of, right? Or maybe you have a handful of them that you can still balance while working remote. Kind of taking the leap. Sometimes there is that analysis paralysis, and I know that's happened to me for sure. Secondly is, once again, assuming that a lot of people are native English speakers with a college degree, and even those two elements are actually pretty flexible in Southeast Asia. So I know around a lot of the world they want you to be native English speaking and have a college degree, but there's parts of Southeast Asia where I've met Filipino people who are teaching English, and they're making a couple bucks less just because they didn't look the part. And I also had a buddy who was teaching English in Vietnam who didn't have a college degree. And so those two things can even be pretty flexible. So, last question is, what are your two biggest fears when you are working remote, and how do you handle it?
Oh man, so that is very different today than it was several years ago when I was starting. The biggest fears that I had when I was first starting out was like, am I gonna make it? Is this gonna work? Because it was very, really, not much money to speak of. It was I just wanted to figure it out to some extent at least. And then now at this point, it's more of like I'm not staying in hostels as much anymore. I'm making sure that I have like a setup like where I land. I'm looking at Airbnbs that have like reviews that say it has great Wi-Fi. I just got back from a trip to Mexico doing exactly this.
Yep.
And so the biggest worries are, I don't know if I'm too worried about things anymore. I just make sure that I'm going to be connected.
Yeah. Connection is a huge one for a lot of folks, right?
I make sure that I'm going to be connected. And as long as that works out, like, don't know. Like I'm probably looking for like Facebook or WhatsApp groups ahead of time just to connect with people while I'm there.
That's a good call.
Especially if it's a short trip. It depends on what I want to get into.
Yeah.
But I mean, after all these like years of going places, I tend to like show up and then talk to people and figure out what I'm doing from there anyway. So I'm not much of a like fixed itinerary kind of dude. I'll more show up and see what's going on. So as long as I've arrived and everything's fine, there's not too many fires of work to put out. Or if I am taking a bit of time off, making sure that like my teams will start to take care of things like those are the big critical things. But that's going to be a different reality depending on what your schedule is and whether you own your own business or whether you're like, doing a job. You're gonna just making sure that you have flexibility built in to whatever you're doing, so that things aren't going to fall apart just in case you're an extra, several hours getting from point A to B.
Yeah, for sure.
Shit happens.
So kind of to distill that down is one is going to be kind of connectivity. There's a number of different ways to do that. I will be writing an article, depending on when you're watching this, I will be writing an article about Wi-Fi connectivity, how I handle it. I have a couple different, backup. I have a backup plan, and about 3 or 4 different backup plans. One that's really great is Airbnb. Yeah, looking on Airbnb or Booking or whatever you do. If they don't have a search function for the reviews, just Control F Wi-Fi. Try to look at all the reviews and look through and see, okay, what are people saying about Wi-Fi? That's a really good one for sure. The second one is that community aspect. I really like that. So for Facebook groups, I think most people watch this probably would know how to find Facebook groups, or just kind of search them on Facebook. How about WhatsApp groups? I'm not familiar with how to find a WhatsApp group. Or you need to know somebody?
That's typically something that's come just from like, and once you start doing this, then you start meeting other people pretty fast. Like by definition, people are spreading out to lots of different places. You'd be surprised at who you know where. And then like those things start to click. But if I'm just starting and I don't know anybody in a place, I'm looking up Facebook groups just to see like digital nomads, X city, and you can actually often tell how active a nomad crowd without actually having somebody who's experienced to talk to you about it. The most reliable way that I've known to be able to figure out how active a city really is as far as the digital nomad scene goes is checking out, the Facebook group, seeing how many people are in it and how active it is.
And Facebook does give you those metrics, I believe, right? With kind of
you can see like number of members
people post per day,
and that's just for like a general feel. Like if you're in a city that doesn't have any Facebook groups surrounding this topic, then they're probably not. Despite what Nomad List or anything else says, it's probably not going to be a whole lot going on while you're there.
Yeah, that's a good proof.
Surrounding this topic, but then like people don't just travel to see other digital nomads. Like it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thanks, Luke. We appreciate having you.
All right, man.
Till next time.